Hello, Reese football fam. If you don't know who I am, my name is Rhett. I am usually the sidekick, the Robin to Matt's Batman. Whenever he decides to include me as a co-host, I will be there, and I will sort of make some witty comments every now and then. This will be a more serious program. I am going to give my takeaways from each week in college football, and we're just going to have fun with it. So here we go, takeaway number 1. Is ACC in trouble already? Clemson was dominated in Atlanta by the Georgia Bulldogs. Their offense is historically bad, with Cade Klubnik just not living up to his 5-star status. This is his junior season, his 3rd season at the reins as Clemson quarterback, and you didn't think it got much worse than DJ Ugabuga until you've seen Cade Klubnik now in his 3rd season. He just hasn't regressed. It looks bad. Phil Maffa, their running back, just wasn't as explosive as I was hoping he would be against Georgia. That might just be because their defense is elite, but I really worry about Clemson's offense this year. But their defense is really good. I mean, Georgia's offense only put up 6 points in the first half, and then I think fatigue set in. They got tired, they were defeated, and Georgia put up 28 points in the second half. But Clemson's defense is going to still be elite. Dabo Swinney knows what he's doing on the defensive front. The offense is going to be really bad this year. FSU loses a close one to Georgia Tech in Dublin. You guys already know this. We discussed it in this last week's pick-up video. But FSU is at home tomorrow against Boston College. Boston College's offense is very solid. Be prepared for them to put up about 20 points on FSU. But I'm hoping FSU can get into the swing of things because they're going to need it. If they stumble against Boston College, Tallahassee might burn to the ground. It's going to get really ugly there in a bit if they lose that game against Boston College. NC State struggled against an FCS opponent in Western Carolina University. Western Carolina is no North Dakota State or South Dakota State. They were a mid-tier FCS program last year, and I think they have been historically. This was not a good look for North Carolina State and Grayson McCall. I hope they get things together because the ACC really needs to add some players into their league just to boost up their strength of schedule. Virginia Tech, lucky not to get blown out in Nashville to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt looked really good, but for Virginia Tech, did not look good. 21 returning starters this year, and they looked like shit. Let's hope they can get it together, but it's not a good start to lose to Vanderbilt at home when half their stadium's under construction. And then last ACC team that I'm going to highlight here is North Carolina. They weren't really projected to make noise this year, but their starting quarterback, Max Johnson, broke his leg in their match against Minnesota on Thursday. And I don't know who their backup quarterback is, but North Carolina's really going to have to rely on that run game. And they won the game, so they're 1-0, but it's not looking good when you have a relatively new QB coming in, and the run game is what you're going to have to rely on this year. Takeaway number 2. Some teams had rough starts to the season. They still won, but they looked a little weird. First team is Ohio State. They sleptwalked through the first half against Akron. Akron is their team they play every year to start the season, and they're just going to beat up on them. And they did. I mean, they scored 56 points on them. I think they only conceded 6. So in terms of game, it looked great, but the first half did not look great. Jeremiah Smith, true freshman out of Chaminade, Madonna, who is 0-2, by the way. But Jeremiah Smith is damn good, and he is going to be the leader, the focal point of this offensive pass game. Will Howard struggled a tad to start the season. I think he's going to get into his groove. We saw him at Kansas State for the 2 seasons that he was the starter there. He was phenomenal. He has now progressed into an Ohio State caliber quarterback, which, no, I'm not trying to shame Kansas State here, but they're not Ohio State. Everyone knows that. This is Will Howard's time to boost up his draft profile if he's going to go into the NFL one day. This is it. You got to do better, Will Howard. Oregon couldn't seem to get the offense going at all against Idaho. Not a good start. Dylan Gabriel, transferred from Oklahoma, transferred from UCF to Oklahoma. This guy has played a lot of football. This is his last season. I expected them to be a little bit more explosive on offense. It might just be a little bit of ring rust. They haven't played since spring ball, and that was against each other. So here we go. They played Liberty as their last game last year, and they didn't have to try at all. So give Oregon the benefit of the doubt. Their defense looked pretty solid, but it's against Idaho. I mean, I don't know. We're going to have to check and hope that their offense is the caliber that we're expecting it to be, because their defense might be average this year. Michigan, they need to figure out who their starting quarterback is. Orji versus Warren. I don't know what's going on, but I was under the impression that Orji was going to be the starter this year, since he rode the bench for 3 years behind whatever the other guy's name, who's now playing for the Vikings, who got hurt, unfortunately. But Michigan needs to figure out that QB, because their defense looked solid, but Fresno State's not necessarily a juggernaut. I mean, they're good. They're a competent Group of 5 team, but I really worry for Michigan, especially when they're playing Texas next week. Texas Tech, they're in Virginia Tech's territory in terms of returning a lot of starters. They're coming off of a great end of the season last year. They dominated the bowl game. They looked very good at the end of the season. They returned all their starters, essentially. They got some transfer portal buzz. They got some highly touted recruits. And then go against Abilene Christian and sleepwalk, almost lose the game. They got 50 points put on them by an FCS program who is not good. Abilene Christian is not a good school. And for Texas Tech to almost lose that game is disastrous. Let's hope they experience this. They're like, okay, whatever. Let's move on to our next game and be better and better and better. That's what they need. Takeaway number 3. Here are the top performances of the week. You have Georgia obviously putting up 34 points against Clemson. They looked great. I mean, their defense looked incredible, but again, Clemson's offense is historically bad this year. I'm calling it right now. But Georgia's offense looked fairly good as well against Clemson's very highly touted defense. I don't know what to think of them yet, but they are definitely the number 1 program in the country. We need to see them versus someone who has a better offense. Unfortunately, I know that's bad to say, because Clemson is still a very good school. They're going to be a top 25 team this year, but I think their offense is dog shit. And we need to see them against a good offense before I put Georgia as a bona fide top program of the college football. Penn State, everyone had them on upset alert this week against West Virginia in Morgantown. Drew Aller, Singleton, the defense came out to play, and they won that game in a very ugly Morgantown. I mean, it was raining for I think they had a rain delay of 2.5 hours. That game didn't end until 5:30 when it started at noon. But both teams did well to respond after the delay. But Penn State did what they had to do, and they won that game. Honestly, they dominated. Good for them. Miami, Cam Ward might be the real deal. We saw him at Washington State put up about 60 points a game, 550 yards passing a game. But that's against Pac-12, who refused to play defense last year. Now he's going to be playing against ACC and SEC programs who are really good at defense. And for a first test, Florida is not that bad. And he dominated Florida. Had 385 passes, 40 yards on the ground, I think 4 total touchdowns, 1 mistake and a pick. But Miami, I label them as the Dallas Cowboys of college football. Everyone ranks them high every year to start the season, and they fold. I mean, look at last year against Texas A&M. They won relatively convincingly against the Aggies, and then they crumbled. We need Miami to stay consistent this year, and they might win the ACC and find themselves in the college football playoff. Notre Dame, defense is amazing. Offense, TBD. We don't know yet. But what I do know is Notre Dame's schedule is easy as fuck. They have the Seminoles, I think, in November, and then USC to end the season, Thanksgiving week. They realistically can go to the Florida State game undefeated and as a top 4 program. Do I think they are a top 4? I don't think so. But right now, their schedule is really bad. They do play Georgia Tech, who could be pretty good this year. They play Louisville, but I expect them to be undefeated when they go and play Florida State in November. Keep an eye out for Notre Dame. Takeaway number 4. I am a Group of 5 guy. I went to USF. I love my Bulls. They are my favorite team, even though I do root for the Noles. Everyone knows that. But the team I'm going to start out with is my USF Bulls. They ran through Bethune-Cookman like they should have. That's to be expected. Now they play Bama, and then they play Miami. But their American Conference schedule is not that bad. They play Memphis at home in October on a Friday night, I think. That game's going to be really fun. I might go to that. Who knows? But keep an eye out for USF. They returned, I think, 16 starters from last year, especially Bynum Brown, who's the highly touted quarterback from, I want to say, this gave bad, but Georgia. I think he's from Georgia or North Carolina, one of those two schools. Very good quarterback. We have a good coach. I love our coach. And this is our first year since 2017 where things look good. Boise State, just like Michigan, they need to figure out their QB situation. Malachi Nelson, I thought, was the unanimous starter, but it turns out Madsen beat him out. So they need to figure that out because Madsen didn't look that good. Malachi Nelson didn't even get a lick of action. But one thing that you don't need to worry about at Boise State is the run game. Ashton Jeanty is bona fide, probably the number one pick, the number one running back to be picked in next year's draft. He's phenomenal. He might have 2,000 yards this year rushing. Boise State's schedule is relatively manageable. Besides, obviously, they go to Oregon next week. But Boise State's one team to keep an eye out for. I think they are favored. They are the number one favored team to go into the playoff this year, Group 5 wise. Liberty, rough start against a spotty FCS team in Campbell. I don't know what happened, but they did not look good. And Liberty has Caden Salters. They have their running back Cooley. This team, their schedule is set for them to go undefeated again and get the number 12 seed. But after that first game, I don't know. We're gonna have to watch out. They're still on the list because they're gonna keep winning games probably until they get to App State. But just keep an eye out for Liberty. Memphis, the Tigers, they are favored in the American Conference for good reason, and the American Conference winners are usually the ones who represent the Group of 5 in the New Year's Six Bowl, so you can't write them off at all. And they go against Florida State in 2 weeks in Tallahassee. They might be able to win that game depending on how Florida State looks against BC tomorrow, but Memphis, they're in a very good position to be the number 12 seed this year. And then last team is a little bit of a stretch right now, but Texas State. They had a lot of hype out of the offseason with Jordan McLeod coming in. They have their running back, Maddie. They have a coach who is probably going to be in the Power 4 next year. Texas State's in a very competitive Sun Belt Conference with App State, JMU, all those others, Troy, South Alabama. But they almost lost to Lamar last week. They were destroying Lamar in the first half and then got complacent, turned it into a one-touchdown game. I think Texas State's pretty good this year, but we need to see as the season progresses where they're at. And then my fifth and final takeaway, it's mainly just a broad statement, but the transfer portal has made college football must-see TV. I mean, there are hundreds of transfers who are going to be impact players this year, and the broadcasters do a great job pointing them out. So as you're watching these games, keep an eye out for players who came from other schools and are trying to make a name for themselves here. I mean, one person that I am going to spotlight right now is Kyle McCord at Syracuse. Very competent quarterback at Ohio State, led them to a New Year's Six Bowl against Oregon State. Unfortunately, didn't get the job done, but he went to Syracuse and yesterday put on a clinic. Looked really good. Syracuse might put Syracuse on the map. And that's just one example of probably 15 from the weekend of transfer portal players making an impact. Just keep an eye out. I mean, I say it all the time, but transfer portal, it's something that, it's like free agency in football now. These players, whether they want to leave for more money, go to a bigger program, who knows what their motives are, but the transfer portal is making it interesting. And that is all for my week 1 takeaways. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and comment below which team you support and any takeaways you had. Also check out the Reese Football Instagram page, especially the reels that Dan makes. They're hilarious. He's a good friend of mine, and I love to see the support he gets. And that will be it for me. Hopefully I'll see you next week, and then I'll see you with Matt very soon. Bye, guys.